The 2019 Daytona 500 proved to be a marathon of survival and strategy that ended with Denny Hamlin taking the win in front of his two Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, marking the first time since 1997 that one race team has swept the podium in this historic race. I'm now joined by David Flynt to break down the key points of the Great American Race. So David, we had a single file parade for all of Xfinity race on Saturday, and not great racing during the Cup Series during Speed Week. Why were there so many crashes during this race?
Simply put, this is the Daytona 500. Putting your name on the Harley J.R. Trophy means in the racing world, your legacy is cemented no matter what else you do or don't do in your racing career. The accolades that come with getting this win, going to New York for a week, doing the late night tour, basically being an ambassador for the sport for the rest of the year just because you win this race and the prestige that comes with it, nothing can replace that. So I think just getting out there with new leadership, Jim France is back in charge, putting on a great show for the fans, that's all part of the deal, but it's the Daytona 500 and you want to win it. So you're saying,
like, for our non-racing fans, this is like the World Series of NASCAR, right?
Yes.
You would say that?
Yes.
Okay, that's a fair comparison. Awesome. So this is the end of the restrictor plate era in NASCAR. First of all, can you just explain what that is? And second of all, what kind of legacy does that era leave?
The restrictor plate is a metal plate with holes cut into it that restricts airflow into the motor in hopes of keeping speeds down. They were introduced back in 1988 after Bobby Allison's historic wreck at Talladega, where he injured about 13 people, blew a tire, ripped out a big section of the catch fence there. So NASCAR implemented that rule. But starting next week in Atlanta, a tapered spacer for the Cup cars is introduced. Much the same principle, but not really as rigid of a plate. So the horsepower of the motors will go from about 800 to 550.
Wow, so that's a big change, right?
Mm-hmm. But in terms of the restrictor plate era, the legacy it leaves, big crashes. You saw a bunch of that on Sunday. 3 crashes that involved over 8 cars in the last 20 laps of the race, which that doesn't usually happen in anywhere other than Daytona and Talladega. And there's not much a whole lot a driver can do. You're basically at the mercy of whatever line you're in, and you just hope you get lucky.
So you kind of hinted at this, but this is kind of setting the stage for a new, quote, aerodynamic package, which we're going to see its first action in Atlanta. How does this set the stage? What are we looking at?
Nobody truly knows. There have been a couple test sessions at Las Vegas in the offseason to kind of feel out this package, both for the drivers and teams and for NASCAR itself to know what to look for, but nobody truly knows. And Atlanta is going to be a little different animal because the track surface is very old, hasn't been paved in about 22 years now, very abrasive. So Atlanta may be its own animal, but when we go to Las Vegas 2 weeks from now, maybe a lot more packed racing, a lot tighter racing, not much speed disparity. So it's going to become more of a hope you're in the right line, learn how to work the draft kind of a race rather than brute power in terms of the engine.
Yeah, I think that definitely puts to bed all those arguments that this is just turning left, right? There's a lot more strategy, like you just said. David, always a pleasure. But when we come back, Andrew and Ennis will sit down for some way too early NFL draft discussion. Stick around.